I remember the exact moment when I realized my life was in danger. For weeks it had been building up and suddenly I was sitting there and it dawned on me. If I didn't take drastic measures to ensure my safety, I would lose my life. Never in a million years did I think I'd only get to live for 18 years. There was still so much I wanted to do with my life. I mean, I'd barely even kissed a boy and I hadn't even gone to college yet. This couldn't be happening. And it's not like I had the most carefree life. For one, I'd never met my mom. She died while giving birth to me, and I felt like I must be this constant reminder for my dad that I'm the reason Mom died. I know these things happen, but I couldn't help feeling responsible. So when my 18th birthday was approaching, I decided to pace carefully. Every birthday I had was bittersweet. I always had cake and presents, but at the same time, we always visited Mom's grave and took her flowers. She died so I could be born. Honestly, it's the biggest burden I'll ever carry. Turning 18 felt like a big deal because that was the age my mom died. Yep, she fell pregnant very young and her death was so tragic. I knew this birthday would be particularly difficult for my dad, so I didn't even mention it. He asked me how I wanted to celebrate and I said I was happy to just go out for dinner or something. Pretty quickly, my dad started acting kind of strange. He's always been a quiet, reserved type of guy, but this was next level. I came home from school one day and found him sitting on my bedroom floor, holding some of my old teddy bears, crying. I was so shocked. I saw my dad cry often, but this was different. He looked really sad. I went over to him to ask what was wrong and he pulled me onto the ground and he wouldn't stop hugging me. That was just the beginning. Throughout the next couple of weeks, he wouldn't leave me alone. He was so clingy. It actually got a bit much at one point when he wouldn't even let me walk to school by myself. He insisted on walking with me and he even tried to hold my hand when we were crossing the road. I pushed his hand away and said, "Dad, stop it. I'm almost 18. I'm not a kid. I can cross the road by myself." He looked taken aback after I shouted at him and he apologized and walked away. There was a lot of traffic, but I could have sworn I heard him say something like, "That's the problem. You're almost 18. I was feeling tired, so I started walking upstairs towards my room. It was so hot, so I opened my window and flopped down on my bed. I could hear my dad and my cousin outside talking, but I wasn't really paying attention. Suddenly, I heard my name and my ears perked up. "Listen, you really need to tell her. Oralee is turning 18 this week. She has a right to know. I mean, when was the last time any female in this family made it past 18? It's like a curse, Uncle James." Curse? What was my cousin talking about? What did I have a right to know? I ran downstairs as fast as I could, but my cousin was already in his car driving off. I screamed his name, but he just waved and then was gone. As I turned around, my dad was standing in the doorway. "Dad, what's going on? Is this why you've been acting so weird? Am I about to die or something?" "Oralee, no, don't be stupid. Your cousin has clearly been watching too many movies. It's just a coincidence that your mom, my sister, and your cousin all died at the same age, but what do you mean, your sister?" I was too quick for him. And that's how I found out that my dad had a sister who drowned when she was 18. I had never even heard of her before. No wonder my dad was so emotional about me turning 18. He'd lost his wife and his sister at that age. It was crazy. It felt like something out of a movie, a family curse. And then my cousin, she died last year in a car crash and she'd been 18 too. That night, I didn't sleep much. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I couldn't remember the last time a woman in our family had lived past the age of 18. How had I not thought of this before? This whole time I'd been excited to turn 18 because I'd go off to college. But how would I even make it to college? What if I died tomorrow? My mom died giving birth, my aunt died drowning, and my cousin died in a car crash. Well, I could definitely avoid swimming, and I didn't own a car, and there was no chance I was about to have a baby. But I could die just walking down the street. I was turning 18 a day later. That meant I had 24 hours to do all the things I wanted to do. But what if I died doing them? No, I couldn't even risk it. I spent the last day of being 17 curled up in bed watching movies. I didn't even want to eat in case I choked and died. My dad kept asking me to at least join him downstairs. But what if I fell down the stairs and then... No, but there was one thing I knew I couldn't skip. It was our tradition after all. Dad was watching TV and I crept behind him and went out to the garden to pick some flowers. Mom always loved tulips and we had them in every color. I came back inside and tapped Dad on the shoulder. He turned around and I thought he would cry from happiness. Come on, Dad, you didn't think I'd forgotten, did you? We drove to the cemetery and it was pitch black. We left home late, to be honest, but better late than never. We made our way across the path towards Mom's grave. It was too dark, so I ran back to the car to get Dad's flashlight. Suddenly, the ground gave way beneath me, and if it hadn't been for a nearby gravestone, which I quickly grabbed onto, I'd have fallen about 3 meters into a freshly dug hole. I got such a fright, I just started screaming. Dad came running and saw me standing an inch from the hole. Luckily, Dad had already put the tulips by Mom's grave because I wasn't about to spend a second longer than I needed to in that place. On the way home, I sat there shaking. We didn't speak a word to each other. As we pulled up into the driveway, I slammed the door and turned to Dad and said, "See? It is a curse. I could have died back there." I was shaking as I walked carefully to my room. I decided it was no longer safe out there. I couldn't die. I was too young. I locked myself in my room, and I made a promise to myself not to leave it again. I'd pretty much almost fallen into an open grave. The curse was real. Dad eventually gave up trying to get me to go anywhere. Summer vacation had arrived and I was adamant that I would not leave my room. There were dangers everywhere. I could get stung by a killer bee or slip in the shower. After weeks of not going outside, I started to feel really weak. One day, my friends came over with a picnic and tried to get me to go outside, but I refused. They ate their picnic on my bedroom floor while I sat in bed and ate some leftover soup. After they went home, I felt relieved. Who knew what bug they might have brought into my room? But that night, I started to feel really sick. I woke up and there was sweat pouring down my back. My skin felt clammy and hot, and suddenly I had to run to the bathroom. The whole time I was running there, I kept thinking, what if I fall and hurt myself? It was only when I was throwing up into the toilet that the realization washed over me. Oh my gosh, I could die from being sick. It kept getting worse, and my dad found me slumped across the bathroom floor and rushed me to the hospital. I had to take a big bucket along as I couldn't stop throwing up. The whole ride there, we were both freaking out. Dad kept apologizing, saying he was sorry, and maybe there really was a curse, which definitely didn't help the matter. We reached the hospital and Dad had to basically pick me up and drag me through the doors. That's how weak I was. Then, to make matters worse, the doctor who had saved my life when Mom died was the one who was on duty, which of course just brought a whole flood of emotions back for my dad. Could this night get any crazier? I think the nurses on duty weren't sure which of us was the sick one. Dad looked just as pale and upset as I did. After some tests, the doctor confirmed that I wasn't dying. I just had a severe case of food poisoning from the soup I'd eaten, and also a bit of malnutrition from staying indoors for so long and refusing to eat properly. You mean I'm not going to die, Doc? What about the curse? At this, the doctor started laughing. Okay, Orly, you need to get some rest, and your old man too. You're both a bit delirious, I think. After a couple of days of rest in the hospital, I was ready to go home. I'd survived. Had I beaten the curse? On the drive home, out of nowhere, Dad just burst out laughing. Orly, I think you actually cursed yourself. How ironic is that? You refused to go outside and you refused to eat the food your friends cooked, and still you got sick. It's all in our heads, I think. Let's just put this all behind us. It's all just coincidence, okay? There's no such thing as curses. And you know what? Dad was right. I'd become so fixated on keeping myself out of danger that I'd actually brought it on myself. It's like I'd drawn this bad energy towards me. Well, this is at least what I tried to convince myself with, because honestly, a small part of me still believes that I have avoided a curse rather than it not ever existing. I mean, I did kinda almost die a couple of times. Coincidence? Maybe yes, maybe not. I'm 23 years old now, and sometimes I still fear for my life. Oh, and when it comes to kids of my own, maybe I shouldn't even have any. I mean, what if there was a chance it was real and my daughter would be stuck with a stupid curse, especially after seeing how hard it was for my father to deal with it? No, thank you.
Hi, I am Lauren. The story I'm about to share with you is about something that struck me the moment I discovered it. I really had no idea how I should behave then, and I think anyone in my shoes would have gone speechless too. So, a few months ago, my dad drove me to my best friend Diana's house for her birthday party. He insisted on entering with me to wish her a happy birthday. I was embarrassed, really embarrassed. I mean, I am 15, and Diana invited almost everyone I know. I didn't want them to go around saying that my dad had joined me at my friend's party. Anyway, he walked into the house with me, wished her a happy birthday, and spent the rest of the time talking to her mom and laughing together. I was glad that no one noticed him or seemed to care about his existence. But once everyone else had left, I realized that my dad hadn't even asked me to leave yet. I went to the kitchen to find him, and oh my God, I saw him kissing Diana's mom in front of the refrigerator. I hid behind the door, shocked. A little while later, he left the kitchen and asked me if I was ready to leave. My hands were sweating, and everything in me was shaking. But I looked into Dad's eyes and asked him directly, "Are you cheating on Mom?" He looked at me surprised and asked me why I was asking such a question, and then I told him that I'd seen him kissing Diana's mom a moment ago. He was silent for a bit, and then answered, "No, I am not cheating on your mom. She knows about this. Honestly, your mom and I decided to go our separate ways." Wait, what? This was bigger than anything I could grasp. First, I saw Dad kissing another woman and knew he was having an affair. And then I found out he and Mom wanted to break up? No! As soon as we got home, I ran to my mom's room and asked for an explanation. She told me that she and Dad were not attracted to each other anymore, and hence were allowing each other to date other people. She then told me that they wanted to separate so that they could continue their lives the way they each wished. My mom was convinced that this was the best for everyone, and asked me to accept that too. It might seem really weird, but this was how I have always known my parents, to be very understanding. And yes, they do deserve to pursue the life path they want. It was hard for me to accept this at first, but I have succeeded. Today, they're divorced. I live with my mom, and my dad and his new lover visit us weekly.